ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Mysterium Files live stream. We are going to be talking today about aliens. Yeah, it's a fan favorite, and we're gonna have Dr. Brian Huffling talking about this whole thing related to what the government is doing. Yes, always the government, always aliens, and the fact that they got a URL. And we want to know what's going on with that URL. Well, you're watching this live. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're watching after the live stream, make sure that you leave your comment in the comment section. If you want to support this stream, the best thing you can do is to share and to like and subscribe. That's the way that you support all of us here at the Mysterium Files channel. My name is Jorge. Yes, you got to roll the R, my friend Jorge. And we're going to have Brian coming in and unpacking this whole idea about the Aliens.gov website and what they're trying to do with it. And we're going to see if they are trying to be honest and share with us the truth about what's going on in outer space. Also, I heard Elon Musk talking about how exciting the future is going to be because we're not going to be confined to this small little blue globe, but we're going to be going into the stars. So maybe you can ask Brian if that is even a possibility, if that makes sense. And yes, you are invited to ask questions. All you have to do is leave your questions in the chat section, and then we'll try to do our best to answer those questions live here for you in the Mysterium Files. Also, let us know what is your favorite or your all-time favorite video here in the Mysterium Files, and make sure that you can share it with your friends. We're trying to do this every week. Some days we're going to be able to do it this early. Some days we probably will have to move it a little later. But the idea remains. We want to bring the truth to all of you here in the Mysterium Files. And in 3, 2, 1, we are in. Howdy, and blessings, everyone. My name is Jorge Gil. I am the producer and co-host of the Mysterium Files. And without further ado, I'm going to bring in our host and friend, Brian Huffling. What's happening, Brian?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just excited about this topic. I know this is something that is fresh. People want to know about it. Probably will allow us to have plenty of clips to share with people. Hopefully we can expand this information. We can disseminate this information. So Aliens.gov, what in the world is going on? And the beginning, first of all, give us an explanation, a quick, brief explanation of what is an alien, man. In your mind, what is an alien? What is an alien?
That's a great question. Okay. People don't tend to ask that question. Normally, when people think of an alien, they think of this thing over here, right? This green
there you go.
Yeah, green or gray looking thing.
Right.
Over here, rosy. And that's normally what people think about when they think about an alien, a physical creature. Now, there's some people who are in ufology who think that aliens could be interdimensional, not necessarily just small beings or whatever kind of beings.
I'm in that camp, so to speak. You know that they are interdimensional. They can materialize. That they're in and out, so to speak. Yeah. Into this material world. I actually heard, and I know we were talking behind the scenes about what's going on with Bigfoot in the Bigfoot community and how everybody's up in arms due to that documentary that is going to be coming out soon that we're going to be covering here in the Mysterium Files as well. But one of the things that what I heard is that Bigfoot also has that supernatural ability to that it is a being that has almost like psychic powers, and that's one of the reasons why it's so elusive.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting about the whole Bigfoot thing is you've got it's not really uncommon for people who have a closer encounter experience, like not just a light in the sky or anything like that, but they have like they're closer to a UFO or they have like an alien experience, to have other kind of paranormal experiences too. And Bigfoot and other cryptids are included, like Mothman, stuff like that. So yeah, they kind of traffic in the same kind of weirdness that you see with the UFO stuff.
All right, so tell us, what's an alien?
All right, so an alien, it could be, again, what most people consider to be just a physical being from another planet. Some think it's a physical being that can materialize through different portals or dimensions. Jacques Vallée is one who holds to that view. You've got some who hold that aliens are interdimensional, that are immaterial beings, spiritual kind of beings, paranormal, basically, if you would. So that it depends on your view as to what an alien. Those are all candidates for what people refer to as an alien.
Okay. Now that we know what an alien is, let's find out what's going on with Aliens.gov. What do we know about this URL, this domain on the internet that, the government purchased?
Yeah, not a lot. Not a lot. It's as elusive as the whole phenomena in general. And there's different theories as to what is going on with the URL. So they got this domain, Aliens.gov, and you've got different theories as to what's going on with it. You've got one theory that says that this is part of the overall disclosure, and they're about to drop something really big on us. Other people are like, why aliens? Why not UAP.gov or something? Why not UFO.gov?
That's what I was going to ask. Why would they chose aliens and not something neutral like UAP or extra, stuff like that?
So is it just playful? Is it playful on the side, like they're being kind of toyish with everybody?
Right. So that's I was gonna think. Are they toying? Are they prepared? Is this something like a signal that they're sending us? Or is this just, by way of precaution that they're using this URL?
Yeah, and the timing is weird because just a few days ago, Barack Obama came out saying he's on a podcast, and someone asked him, "Are aliens real?" And his response was interesting. He said, "They are real, but I've never seen them, and they're not being kept at Area 51 or Wright Pat or anything like that, unless there's a super secret program," which everyone says there is in that kind of community. The presidents, if you've seen Transformers, the original one in 07, the president didn't even know about the aliens or the Transformers, basically. It's kind of the same idea.
Interesting.
And then Trump came out and said, well, he gave out classified information. He shouldn't have done that. So everybody said, well, what's the classified information? That aliens exist? And so we got the whole gamut of possibilities here with what does a URL refer to, or what's the significance of it. Could it be they're about to have a full-blown disclosure? Could it be they're toying with us? Could it just be a placeholder for reports? Okay, you have a report of a UFO or whatever, then you're gonna put it there.
Could it be that they are, using this to have a pipeline to control the narrative?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they could do that. That's part of what people are talking about. And they control this as a messaging. Because, the government's not going to do this and people not pick up on it. They do sometimes make URLs and not use them just to kind of get them and hold on to them.
Right.
But could it be a placeholder for just UFO reports in general? Could it be just kind of going along with this narrative? And it's not unprecedented for the government to use UFOs UFOs as a cover for secret technology. We did that before. We've had people in the Air Force who have said that they've used the cover of UFOs to screen our actual technology. We got people who are in the Office of Special Investigations who are counter intel, basically saying that what you guys saw over Area 51 or whatever, that might have been a UFO when it really was an Air Force plane.
So it looks right like several decades ago, talking about aliens, you had to make sure that you're with your weird friends and you have the tinfoil hat, right?
Right.
That was the thing. It was a subgroup of weirdos talking about this. You fast forward a couple of years, things have started to shift, and now it looks. I mean, it could be, in my estimation, as if the government is kind of slowly trying to normalize this idea of aliens, and
Yeah.
and is this something that maybe we can quantify historically on how this happening, and what would that be the case?
Yeah. So normalize, interesting you use the word normalize, because this is not the first time this has happened. So the UFO craze, the modern U.S. UFO craze, really started in 1947. The timeline's very interesting. You've got the first modern UFO sighting, really, with Kenneth Arnold seeing 9 what are going to be considered flying saucers, basically. That was in late June of 1947. In June, July, we have the Roswell incident, and then in September, so Roswell, you probably know, they alleged crash. No one disputes the crash. Something crashed. No one disputes that. So we got the crash, and then in late 70s, you got people saying there were alien bodies there and wreckage, all that kind of stuff. But in 1952, people will say, well, if they're really aliens, why don't they show up on the White House lawn and whatever? Well, there were a lot of sightings in the summer of 1952 over Washington, D.C. So in UFO circles and military circles, you got what are called flaps. So a flap in this context is where you've got a lot of UFO sightings all at once. We had the DC flap in 1952. Well, it freaks everybody out, including the CIA. So the CIA calls a meeting with the Air Force, and they meet in January of 53. It's called the Robertson Panel. It's a panel of physicists and scientists trying to get at what's going on with the UFO issue, right? So what they decide, or what they put out anyway, in this very secret memo that came out years later, was there's no national security issue really, but the issue really is more of communication. They don't want to clog the lines of people freaking out over what they're seeing in the sky. So what they end up doing is saying, we want to basically desensitize the public to all these sightings. We're going to enlist Disney and Hollywood and various media. They don't really got Disney on this, but that was their idea. This in the documents, that they want to basically control the narrative, as you mentioned before, about UFOs and everything. And so what they decided to do was make it so normal that people didn't freak out about it. Because the issue then in 1952 and 3, we're still in right after World War II. You have the Cold War with Russia. People are thinking these things are either Soviet or maybe German. And so they want to control the narrative then as well. And we're seeing kind of the same thing now as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because we're seeing that same kind of power of desensitizing the public in the LGBT, the whole alphabet issue, right? We've seen that also with the demonic, right? To the point where there are cartoons today that are literally painting demons, embodied demons, as a good and amicable, right?
And I would say Disney did do that to an extent. They had this kind of spirituality even early on within their cartoons. Doing that.
Yeah. By the way, we have Priscilla Fonseca watching live.
Hey, Priscilla, how you doing?
She loves this kind of topics because she actually, maybe she's someone we can interview. She has a history of witchcraft. And,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in the strands of the occult, from a perspective of someone who was born and raised in Mexico City. So that could be very interesting.
I didn't know that. Very interesting. Well, thanks for being here, Priscilla.
So let me. What is your take on all of this? And related to Aliens.gov. What is your, after all that we just discussed, what is your take on it?
So the government tends to have been admitting in the last 9 years, since the 2017 New York Times article came out about government investigations with UFOs and the Navy videos, they basically have come out saying, okay, these videos that people are seeing that have been put out and leaked basically are real. We don't know what they are. And then they had the 2017, the Office of Director of National Intelligence report, a short 9-page report about what these things are. And there were 144 cases in that report, and they only knew what one of them were, and it was probably a weather balloon. So the narrative has been UFO, UAP, national security. The only real discussion with aliens in the last few years that I'm aware of, really, on any kind of serious level, would be David Grush's testimony in 2023.
I remember that.
Right, where he said he had talked to people who had come across biologics. He didn't call them aliens, but they were non-human biological entities, he said.
Right. I was going to say unpack what you mean by biologics, because a lot of people are not just going to remember we are talking, to each other, but from the other side of the screens. Yeah, something living.
Yeah, so we
something living that has tissue and we're and a body and
right. Something biologically alive.
Right. Because I was going to say
more than that.
Yeah, what I was going to say is also because I love science fiction, and interestingly enough, and for example, part of the Picard Star Trek kind of reboot, the whole idea is that the synthetics were malfunctioning and they rebel. Right, same narrative as, let's say, something related to Terminator, right? With the Skynet. So that's kind of the opposite of biologics, right? Synthetics are those, and actually, it's interestingly that now we have factories making synthetics, right? For example, the Tesla robots. Right, this is no longer science fiction.
That's right.
It's science fact.
Yeah, they called it back in the 80s with Terminator, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just go ahead. I just want to just make a little detour.
Oh, that's all. And so the narrative has primarily been about quote unquote craft, or just unknown craft, basically. The narrative has not been about aliens. My big fat guess about what Aliens.gov is going to be is probably going to be a repository of reports.
Okay.
UAP kind of reports, kind of. I don't think they're coming out with any kind. That would be a massive leap from we don't know what that is to there's aliens.
Right.
If there is going to be a disclosure, they're going to have to say, okay, more than just there are things flying around and they're not weather balloons. There's going to be a step between that, if there were such things as biological aliens. In that sense. So
the whole domain thing, we should not be overreacting about that. I think that we should have keep a cool head and see what they do.
Keep a cool head, yeah. And in this field of of UFOs and the paranormal, it's really easy to get spun up over nothing.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. That's what sells, though, and that's one of the reasons that we want to do this show here, to be able to have a more centered approach.
Right.
This is a void that was left after. I remember Dr. Heiser used to have a podcast called Peer Normal, where they would read peer review articles on the paranormal and things like UFOs, the Mothman.
Okay.
Bigfoot,
my favorite.
Yeah, Bigfoot and so on.
Right.
So we want to be able to do something like that, especially with the fact that you are a expert in because your education, your PhD, it's in a different field, but your ability to research, your ability to think clearly, and your involvement in this professionally with the Air Force allows you to invest time and resources digging deep into this. And obviously, I'm just here along for the ride.
I thought about that. My PhD is in philosophy of religion, which is not completely unrelated.
Right.
but almost nobody has a degree in something
Yeah, like
ufological or
ufology,
paranormal.
yeah.
So
Right, right, right.
everybody's bringing in kind of a different look
Background
at it.
and yeah, and kind of expanding from there or going from there. So
Right.
I know that here we talk about biologics. Here we talk about aliens. And when we talk about aliens, aliens.gov, you usually think, that's the first thing that come to mind is biologics, right? Little green guys, or the things with the elongated heads, or these other entities that we kind of are used to uh, seeing in movies. They come in flying saucers. They are able to teleport. They're able to do all of these other things. And yet there is a missing piece of the story. And we alluded to it in the beginning when I asked you about the concept of what is an alien. And you mentioned something and said, okay, that's the camp I'm in. So what is the missing? Why does, let's say, let me ask you this question. Why in stories that relate to UFOs, aliens, even biologics, right? It always include an aspect of disappearances or secrecy behind everything that is going on.
Yeah, because it seems like the entire sphere of UFO lore and everything is the idea is that if you hold to the traditional ETH or the extraterrestrial hypothesis, it's aliens trying to come in and do things that are secret. And I think it has this idea of secrecy because people believe that the aliens are trying to be secret. And so the fact that it looks secret kind of plays into that narrative.
Right.
And then you got the other people who are more in our camp who think that this is a paranormal issue, which also is deceptive in nature. And then you've got people who are like Jacques Vallée, who hold to an interdimensional view, but that they're physical beings that have learned how to manipulate space-time. They're also deceptive. So every camp has this, that's a great point. Every camp has this notion of deception and secrecy and darkness to it, because there's some kind of change going on. In fact, that's the notion of change in the paranormal world is called liminality. And so there are things that are liminal, and that's where you don't have this binary. It's like a window of change. And so if something is liminal, then it's introducing change. The whole notion of aliens and this whole thing is about liminality, and there being this kind of disclosure, change going on. And so I think that the majority of this discussion has to do with this, whatever camp you hold to. There's always this notion of deception and conspiracy, and you can't trust people, which is part and parcel of the whole paranormal phenomena. It is just baked in with not just deception, but with paranoia.
Interesting. So now you work, you've been in 3 branches of the military, if I recall correctly.
That's right. Yep.
And now you are, excuse me, in the Air Force. You're Air Force chaplain. You do a lot of research too in that area. And so you have access to, like I said, time and resources to study this. There was a story about a missing general, right? Can you tell us what it's being claimed about this general and how we need to handle it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. This general he's a Major General William McCaslin. He worked. The interesting piece with him is that he worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Now, if you don't know much about all this world here, Wright-Patterson up in Dayton, Ohio, is where they allegedly took the crashed wreckage and bodies from the Roswell crash. And so that's where a lot of people think that Wright-Pat is a hotbed of UFO secrecy. If you watched in a really great show, the History Channel's Project Blue Book, they're stationed at Wright-Pat, and they're supposed to have secret planes there, all kind of. So Wright-Pat is just in the middle of all this UFO secrecy. Well, So General McCaslin, he worked there for a while. He was the former commander of the Air Force Research Lab. He went missing about a month ago, and he took a 38 revolver with him. Didn't have his glasses apparently, and just disappeared. And the interesting thing about him is twofold. One, he was part of Wright Pat, and he oversaw a lot of these secret programs that allegedly have these UFO ties to them. And then about 8 months ago, one of the people he worked with went hiking as well. She was out with some friends. They looked back, waved at her. They turned around, and then a few minutes later, she was gone. They spent months looking for her. Couldn't find her. She was part of she did research as well in the area of the kind of metals that they would use in spacecraft and that kind of thing. And then not long ago, another scientist was shot on his front porch. Carl Gilmer. He was shot on his front porch. This was 11 days before General McCaslin went missing. So a lot of this going on at the same time, which is making people wonder, is there some kind of linkage to these accounts?
I was gonna say yes. Is this, is at what point we start looking at these things that might look unrelated or might be unrelated, but it starts looking like a pattern, right? It starts looking like these things are happening,
right?
So at what point we can tie it all together? I know, because we want to avoid just filling in the gaps with a speculation, which is what the internet does. Right. But we also want to give merit to tying these loose ends in a way that has explanatory power and has cohesion, right? It has all of these things that help us to make inference to the best explanation.
Right.
So at what point do we do that with this?
Great question. The lady who went missing was Monica Reza, by the way. Different theories are going on with the situation. One is it's just a national security issue. You've got these top scientists who are doing work in various aspects of very sensitive material for the U.S. You got people who are being kidnapped or killed, and it is very strange. So some people are saying, a lot of folks aren't going to the abduction conclusion that the aliens got them, basically. But there are, I think, people who want to go to the notion that, well, they know a lot. And this is after, and interesting timing too, this is right after President Trump came out saying we're going to disclose the UFO files. And then this guy goes missing.
I was going to say,
gets killed. And the timing is weird, to say that, they'll say the least.
I was going to say, could just the fact that they were working on classified stuff explain someone suddenly going off the radar, right? Is this something that maybe somebody didn't want them to share, whatever it is that they were about to share? Or was this scientist or this group of scientists key in certain research and they needed to be kept, from the public? I don't know, man.
He definitely was key. There's no one that disputes his being key, as well as Monica Reza. They all were important and had important roles, and the fact that they kind of trafficked in this kind of spacecraft, weird kind of things, where the general oversaw a lot of the finances and projects that were going on. So no one disputes that. So you've got these different theories. The extreme one is that they were abducted by aliens. A less extreme one is that a foreign national killed them to stop them from, doing whatever with their information that they had.
Well, you mean a foreign national? You're talking about like the plot in Stranger Things with the Russians were actually digging the portals under the mall, right?
I'm talking about a different country assassinating them.
Okay.
And then you got another theory of our country assassinating them.
Okay.
I'm not saying that happened. I am not saying that, but that is something that people talk about. Is we
There's
got all these people
speculations
going
that
at this UFO disclosure, and you've got the government, the possibility people are saying that the government had a role in their disappearance, and we're not saying the one scientist is dead, but we don't know what happened to the general or this other scientist, Monica Reza.
Well, I want to say something because this is it is very important. We want to make a disclosure here that we're not coming to conclusions. We are just presenting the information. We allowing people to come to their own conclusions, but we also want to be able to help other people think clearly about this, right? So, if I were to ask you, what kind of evidence would move this story, this disappearance that look like they're connected, right, from just a rumor? Right. Well, it's not a rumor because there's evidence that they're missing. Right. But going from just this theory that is tied to either all of the things that you said or what missing piece would move this from just speculative to something credible, to something that you're like, okay, there is definitely this definitely happened. We just know the other side of it.
That's a great question, and I think some people would say those pieces are already there on the table because they work together, and in this weird UFO-ish topic, the spacecraft and the kind of metals we needs for spacecraft is what Reza did. There would, I think, have to be just that people could call that a coincidence. Maybe it is a coincidence. Some would say there just needs to be either a person or financial link or some kind of national security link that's more obvious that they are connected in some way. The fact that they couldn't find or they can't find either one of them, but the fact that she was with her friend. I don't think he was with anybody. I could be wrong. I don't think he was with anybody. But the scientist, Dr. Reza, was with her friends and just gone, just boom, like that, just missing, and they couldn't find her. They used the authorities looked for her with all kinds of different techniques and couldn't find her. I mean, that raises a lot of questions. It doesn't seem like it's, just a normal, hiker got lost kind of thing. There's something weird going on. What would it take to make it to connect the dots? People look for financial trails, for similar work, which we already have that with them. In a lot of ways, or another person that would link them together.
All right. We know that the narrative has been, or the alien, or the sentiment about UFOs, UAPs, aliens, whether they're spiritual beings or physical, biological beings, the idea that they're not benign, right? I think that the data shows that there's something dark about this whole thing. This whole idea of disclosure, especially from the government, is it actually happening? Meaning, what has actually changed in the messaging from the government about UFOs, aliens, UAPs over the last decade and a half or so?
Right. Well, in the most broad sense possible, if disclosure just means we're giving out more information, that's undeniable. Because there's been for the entirety of the UFO story, the government has said there's nothing to this story. It's all a bunch of nothing burger, right? Well, in 2004 and 15, we have all these things going on with the pilots seeing UFOs. We have the government actually using millions of dollars to investigate Skinwalker Ranch, the paranormal. We have a history of the CIA investigating the paranormal and trying to harness it and use it. We have remote viewing, for example, psychic abilities and everything. The 2017 disclosure, in my opinion, is the breaking point. That's when everything changed, because they really couldn't deny at that point that they were doing these investigations. And when these videos came out of the Navy pilots, they came out and said these are the videos.
By the way, so in the disclosure, in the pilots, who Who leaked that?
I'm not sure who leaked it, but it was verified very, very soon, relatively afterwards, that these were real. I'm not sure who. I'm not sure if they even know who leaked it. I don't know. They probably know. I don't know who leaked it, because that's the kind of thing you get in trouble for.
Right.
And honestly, most of the
So obviously it was not a official disclosure.
It wasn't official. It was
okay.
a behind the scenes leak.
Okay.
That forced the government to say, yeah, this is real, or say something about it. And then that forced, so Trump said, we're going to have some kind of report on this. And back in 2020, we have him instilling the UAP task force, the UAP being the newfangled term for UFOs, unidentified aerial phenomena or anomalous phenomena. That replaced the term UFO, which also replaced the term flying saucer, because each term starts getting more and more stigmatized, right? And so we have 3 summers, 4, if you include the 2021 Office of Director of National Intelligence report. In 2022, we have the first congressional hearing in 50 years about what's going on with UFOs. We have 2 intelligence chiefs, two intelligent high up in that community, talking about UFOs, and they admit that there's a lot going on that's real. There is, to some extent, a national security concern, which is what my research was with the Air Force and my own personal degree when I was a major working on my academic work with the Air Force. And in 2023 is when we had this famous hearing with 2 of the Navy pilots, and then David Grush, who was a former Air Force intelligence officer, and there was another person as well who was testifying, where they came out saying there's no doubt we saw these things, they were real. And that's not been disputed since 1947. Even the Air Force has admitted that these things are real, at least in memos. And then we have Grush's testimony about the biologics and the craft.
Yeah. So you think that they is not like the government chose to reveal?
I don't think so. I think that things have happened to make them do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't see any. The way it happened is that you've got things going on that basically force their hand. You've got the pilots coming out. You've got the videos coming out. You got certain politicians do seem to want disclosure,
right,
but the handlers of the information don't. And that's been the case historically. You've had politicians from the very beginning and groups who wanted congressional hearings. You got NICAP, for example, back in the 50s and 60s, who were just begging for congressional hearings. They want disclosure, but the government agencies don't, and really nothing good can come out of that, except to use the screen of UFOs to mirage our technology, which again is not new.
I was gonna say, yeah. So on the yes side, on the disclosure side, I was gonna say, what are the pros and cons, and at the no side, what are the pros and cons? So can you give us, at least in your estimation, what would that look like if the government does go and open up and disclose, and what would it look like? Well,
disclose what? That we have the unidentified flying saucers, flying objects, or like aliens?
Like aliens.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the messaging forever has been that the government doesn't want to talk about aliens because it's going to freak everybody out, and you're going to have one of these George Orwell incidents where people panic and freak out. I think that's the biggest worry that people have with the government having a disclosure. You've also got rumors going back to Eisenhower, saying Eisenhower met with aliens on a UFO, and you got. And the government allows aliens to abduct people in exchange for technology. You got a whole gamut of conspiracy here. I
will let them take you if they can give me a faster graphics card.
Thanks. Love you too, Jorge. Appreciate it, buddy. I don't blame you, I guess. Of course, that's if they have the power that they seem to have, they don't need our permission to do that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. So, what would be the plus side of that? I guess just telling us
Oh,
and
the
kind of
truth.
getting it on the table, and saying, well, we got to deal with this in some way. Interestingly, other countries are a little bit more transparent, at least apparently, regarding the UFO issue. That they actually
Other countries like who?
France, Italy, Belgium, Europe is very Brazil. They're much more open about the UFO issue than we are.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why you think that's the case?
I don't know. I think that ever since the beginning of the modern movement in 1947, we had this Cold War concern with Russia and in Germany about their technology. We thought it was Russia. Russia thought it was us, and then we quickly realized it's neither because it's too weird and it's way beyond our capability to have this kind of technology.
And I was gonna say, and I want you, because I love pop culture. I love movies that are action packed movies and movies that makes the supernatural and action. And one of those movies is Hellboy. And I think in the original Hellboy, they talk about how the Nazis were studying the occult, and I know that's real. I know that.
Yeah, that's not science fiction. There's a lot of that both in Germany, and I would say Russia as well, and also in our government.
Yeah, well, of course, and a lot of those people on the Russia and German side, right, ended up here, and they got new names and they got new jobs, and they got badges to go to places that we still cannot go today, right? So, I mean, it sounds like out of a movie, because that's what they want you to think, that this is out of the movie and that's something that really happened. But I remember watching that and connecting the dots on how, so the Nazis were studying the occult, and they were also looking. Their ultimate goal was to fuse technology and the supernatural to build weapons, methods of transportation. They were supersonic, things like that. I mean, again, it sounds out there, but it is not out there. It is real.
It is real. That's one of the things that really shocked me years ago when I started reading about this, is that the CIA, and even admittedly so, have studied these things as parapsychological, paranormal things, and tried to use them. Even in Lou Elizondo, who really doesn't like the paranormal framing of the issue, in his book that came out, was it last summer, Imminent, he said he was trained by the Army in remote viewing.
Yeah. Well, Priscilla just said, the Nazis had some weird sort of witches that tried to communicate with aliens.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are things that, sound outer worldly, but no, it's happening in our backyard. That's happening.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It's weird, and it's interesting too that the government knows things. The government, really, there are at least factions in the government who legitimately believe that there's paranormal reality in some way, shape, or form, or they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't be spending all this money and testing remote viewing and psychic power and things Priscilla's talking about and everything, if they didn't think there was something real about it.
Hey, you know what? Maybe next week, what we can do is, because you're talking about all these government programs and all of these things, maybe we can look at the Aliens and Demons documentary, and have a not a remote viewing session.
Let's not do that.
But a viewing session of that, because, Dr. Heiser talked about the MK Ultra program and the reports of the air balloon over Area 51 and all of these things that didn't make sense. And then now we are on the other side, where now we know that splitting the psyche, mind manipulation, sleeper cells, or what do you call it, sleeper agents, all of these things that the government has used techniques to program people and to do things, and a lot of that the sources of these programs end up having a very dark and obscure procedence, right, where it comes from. But let me shift back to what we were talking about, because we can talk about this. This stream can be 5 hours, and we can go over 1,000,001 topics, because there's so much stuff, so many layers to peel back. So now we're talking about the government. We're talking about, they've been denying this for decades, and now they're forced their hand to, they forced their hand to now disclose this, and now they're doing it. Can we trust this information coming from institutions that historically been just shrouded by secrecy?
That's a great question, and that's every time we have a hearing about this, that's the question that comes up: is can you trust the politicians? Can we trust the agencies? So we're on. I had mentioned the UAP task force that was made in 2020. There have been other kind of subsequent programs, and currently we're on the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office that was created in, I think it was 2022 or 23. And there's lots of questions about that. The original director of that has well, he's no longer the director. And the questions about that is this just now another faction of the government that is trying to control the narrative, or are they really going to give us the truth? And you got some people saying there's nothing more to give than what we have in these reports. There's just not really the smoking gun, as it were, which is what Arrow was saying. Arrow denies the biologics, by the way. And so somebody is either mistaken or lying. I'm not saying who it is. I have my thought on that. But in the UFO world, it cannot both be the case that you've got crashed craft and biologics and not. This is basic logic, right? 101. So somebody in the field is lying or very, very mistaken, right? And so the question is, so Arrow is kind of the handler at this point with all the UFO files. And of course, we're seeing this literal disclosure now with Trump's directive to disclose the UFO files. Right. But Arrow was one of the main handlers of all that. Wow. But there's a lot of agencies involved as well, because there's a lot of, things passing back and forth and being in different hands.
So you talk about biologics, right? You talk about basic logic. If we have spaceships, there has to be some sort of physical, entity behind it, or entity that can physically manifest. What kind of evidence would you personally need to believe in a non-human intelligence?
Well, I do believe in non-human intelligence, like you do. And so you've got the you've got this kind of thing, like my buddy over here, Rosie.
Right.
That's what people tend to think about.
Correct.
With non-human intelligence. And I believe in non-human intelligence. I think they're spiritual and paranormal. I don't think that they're physical.
Embodied.
I'm open to discoveries and on other planets. I don't think that's what we're experiencing here on Earth. But what kind of, you have to have a body. You have to have one to say, or open up to the scientific community. Here is the evidence. Here is the actual physical material for people to be able to study. It can't simply be reports. We've had reports since at least the 70s on having dead aliens in our possession.
Right.
It goes way back then in terms of interaction with aliens or beings of some sort.
Right. Well, if we still have those bodies, they were probably made by McDonald's, because they just don't decay, right?
Yeah.
Like the patties.
If you watch the History Channel's Project Blue Book, that's a great show. It's fun, and it is based on actual events or cases, I should say. And in like the second or third episode, they've got an alien in this big container. Like, come on, have a little bit of have some suspense with where we're going to go with this. But they would have to have some kind of containment, basically, as it were. But You're right; it would have to be preserved very well.
Very well, yeah. Almost mummified to some degree.
And if you remember, in fact, speaking of Mexico, you brought up Mexico a little bit ago. There were these mummified remains that Mexico brought out back in, I think it was 23.
I remember that.
Yeah. And they were pretty much debunked before they even came out, because they came really from Peru, if I remember right, and they were hoaxed from the beginning.
Right.
There's a lot of that in this. The
Yeah.
deception.
Well, I think that that's one of the issues here, and it's so wonderful that you have. I mean, you were my professor for the critical thinking class, and I think you
explains it.
gave me.
Sorry.
Yeah. So you were my you were my professor at the critical thinking class, and you were my professor for, I think, Introduction to Philosophy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and I think that that is one of the strengths that we should focus on here on this show, is the fact that you're able to parse out these things, help us think critically and clearly through all of this, and help us to get to, or make the right inferences, and still leave the door open to the supernatural. We are not veering one way or another when it comes to the possibilities, right?
Correct.
You know, and we got to remember that anything is possible, not everything is probable, and those are the things that we need to focus on, is what's probable in this case.
Right.
I want to continue to move the conversation forward. You know, if disclosure will happen tomorrow, how would society react? What do you think it'll be, given the fact that right now we have the Iranian war, we have the Russia Ukraine conflict, we have other things, we have issues related to Cuba, all these socialist, Marxist, communist regimes being toppled, like Venezuela. We're looking at Nicaragua. We're looking at Cuba here in our hemisphere. How do you think society would react? If
I think you'd have a mixed bag of that. Some would panic. Some would question their theology. A lot of religious people are going to question their faith and beliefs.
Right, because they say, well, God didn't say anything about aliens.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And it was interesting. I will say that I was reading a comment in a group yesterday, and the man was just heartbroken because his kids, he's an all earther, right? And his kids, the church that they go is hardcore Kenhamites. Right. Okay. Yeah. And if you didn't understand, if you're on the other side of the screen didn't understand, then you're good. Right. It's good that you didn't. But he was heartbroken because his kid don't subscribe to that view, but he's so terrified they say anything against it, because in their view is you're a heretic.
And the young earth creation view, that for a lot of people is make or break for Christianity. If you prove,
no, even dinosaurs. So but the point that I was going to make is that for them, dinosaurs didn't ever exist, because the Bible didn't say anything about dinosaurs, and it will be the same take with aliens. With the Bible didn't say anything about aliens, so now I'm going to lose my faith because they've been proven.
Right. I think their view has changed, because I went to the Creation Museum last year, and they had dinosaur in the Ark, in the Ark Museum. Yeah. So I think that
but they fit it in though. Like they kind of
cohabitate with humans.
Yeah, they squeeze it in, and they use the same wall carvings that ancient aliens, used to say that humans cohabitated with these animals and even rode. These things like they were horses, right? I
haven't seen that part. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, well, let me get my Velociraptor. I'll be in your house in 20 minutes, right? Anyways, but that's I think that we have to be really careful with that on how we present these things.
You're right, man, and especially in this field, even in theology, philosophy, history, any field, you gotta. I tell my students all the time, you gotta have good sources. You gotta be careful when I pick up a book. I'm gonna grab. I'm just gonna grab this book right here. Here's one. I'm gonna grab a book. I want to know who wrote this book. Who published it. Who were the endorsers of the book, and does he have any credibility?
Right.
And then does he have any why do I want to read this guy?
Right.
Like, I don't want to just read somebody who's completely out there. No pun intended in this discussion, but you want to have good sources and you want to use good critical thinking.
Good.
And interestingly, in this field, you've got people who are very well sourced and very well, very scholarly, who have radically different views. Now, you've got people like Vallée who hold to a physical, interdimensional type being. You've got Hynek, Jerome Clark, who hold more psychic energy kind of thing. John Keel. And you've got people like what's his name? UFOs, National Security State. What's his name? Richard Dolan, who holds to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and is very, very well researched and written. So we just got to be careful that we don't want to jump to conclusions and use logic and use good sources and reasoning on all this.
All right, so let me do a few rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
And anybody on the chat, make sure that you leave your questions or comments there. Also, if you're watching these after the stream is over, make sure that you leave your questions on the comment section and we will pick them out. We'll make sure to read every last one of them and pick them out and maybe use them as a platform for the next show or the next few shows.
And on that point, tell us what you're interested in.
Right.
So what you want us to be talking about, because we want to be able to have fun with you guys and do this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So number one, Aliens.gov, was it just an accident or there's an agenda there?
It's not an accident. I mean, this is done intentionally for some reason, whether they just wanted to make sure they have the domain for later, whether they want to use it as a placeholder for reports. That's kind of my view on that one. Or that they're kind of being playful, probably kind of both being playful and having our pod stored for reporting.
Okay.
Possibility for disclosure. I'm skeptical on that one, but I'm not closed-minded.
Okay. The missing general story, is that a true mystery or is just misinformation from the government?
It's definitely a mystery because the way he disappeared, he had a gun. He's just gone. And it's been a month or so now.
Wow.
Just no high-level person. There's no trace of what happened. And his connection with these other two people, especially the other doctor who was hiking.
Did he have a family? Was it married or?
Yeah, he had a family. He was married. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Didn't have his glasses. That's the weird thing to me is the report that I listened to said he had a 38 and didn't have his glasses. Well, every picture I've seen with him, he's wearing glasses. I mean, I'm not going anywhere without my glasses.
Right. The government disclosure, is it truly happening now, or do you think that we're still decades away from then truly sharing something juicy?
I think definitionally there's disclosure because the government is coming out saying there are things we can't explain. That's just true by definition because there are reports going on now where the government's saying, yep, we've got 144 reports as of this date. Now there's 700 reports as of this date. We don't know what most of these things are. One of the main issues that they're concerned with is pilot safety because we've had a lot of near misses in the air with these things, lots of them. That's one of the concerns that basically it's like a bunch of atmospheric trash, possibly in some cases. They're not all UFOs in terms of being spacecraft or whatever. There's some things that are just there. We don't know what they are, but there could just be some kind of debris. But they cause serious safety concerns.
Right.
So, but full disclosure in terms of aliens, I don't think we're going there right now.
Okay. So let me ask you this, just to, I think that we can close it out on this note or these few questions. So if non-human intelligence exists and you prepare the idea that it does, not in a biological or biologics sense, like the grays or the greens or, the elongated skull aliens and that sort of thing. Right. What does that mean for us as humans in terms of being unique?
If we find them, if they're physical or not physical?
If they're physical, yeah.
They're physical. Yeah, this is some work I do in this area. I have a book chapter in this area and did some presentation a couple weekends ago. And I stayed with you and did this at an Evangelical Theological Society conference.
Is that book available for purchase?
It is, yeah. It's called Space, Philosophy, and Ethics.
Okay, I'll look it up and then share with the audience.
Okay, yeah. My chapter is the last one I looked. That was actually a paper I presented at Space, Philosophy, and Ethics.
Philosophy and Ethics.
And that was born out of actually it was born out of an interview I did with Melissa Doherty. And then a professor in Canada saw it, invited me to come speak at a conference up there at Concordia University back in 20.
All right.
What year is this? 2023.
Right, yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. This is not a cheap book.
No, it's a beast of a price. Yeah.
This is a 77 on paperback, 118 hardcover, and there is no digital version. So.
Right. Now, I do talk about this on the channel. I'm about to do a talk on my other channel, Classical Theology, with Dr. Brian Huffling on this very question about if we found aliens, what would that mean for Christian theology?
Right.
A lot of people get freaked out, and one of the people in Lou Elizondo's documentary on the History Channel called Unidentified claimed to be a Christian and said that he saw UFOs when he was deployed overseas in the desert, I believe, and it was a real faith shaker, according to him. Because, as you said, the Bible doesn't mention anything about aliens.
Right.
So does that mean that we're not unique and special? His view was that shook his faith, and some people even their view of God. Well, my mantra is always, if you're a Christian and you believe that God exists and you believe in the resurrection of Jesus, we cannot forfeit what we do know based on what we don't know. Right. So if aliens, we don't know if they exist or not right now, so we can't start changing our theology for hypotheticals. But if they did come to exist, the interesting thing is actually this book I just showed you. This guy is an atheist, Paul Davies,
right,
and he argues as an atheist, as well as Jacques Vallée, who also is at best probably an agnostic. He's one of the top he might be the top ufologist probably ever in the world. And they both say that, if we discovered, well, Paul Davies says if we discovered another kind of biological race based out of just simply natural evolution, that would be more evidence for design than for not design. He doesn't think it necessarily implies a creator per se, but he does think it implies design. Vallée says in his book, it's either Confrontations or Revelations, in the back he gives 5 arguments for why he doesn't think the alien view explains all the data. And one of them is you got beings like this that have the same basic anatomical structure as us, right? You've got a head, eyes, a torso, 2 legs, and arms. And for random chance evolution to give rise to that is basically impossible, according to what Jacques Vallée says and others as well. So if we did find other aliens, if you add God into that equation, that changes everything, because now we're talking about theistic evolution. Now, I don't hold with theistic evolution, but if we did find other beings, it would not disprove God's existence. And it wouldn't disprove Christian theology. It would raise a lot of questions for Christian theology. Like, well, would Jesus have had to die for them? Were they sinful? Would he have to take on their nature to die to atone for them or whatever? So it would freak a lot of people out. This is why I say, and in fact, in doing this discussion with Concordia University a few years ago and writing that book chapter and everything, I came to realize there are whole subfields on this I didn't even know about. And it's called astrotheology, the study of God, and then cosmotheology, which is, I guess, the same thing or very similar.
It's very, very interesting because you just said that. And Mike Heiser, one of the books that he wanted to finish that, he didn't get to was on astrotheology. Coming from an ancient Near East perspective. He had tons, talking about tons pieces of research. And right now, I think that there is a, I work with the Michael S. Heiser Foundation, and one of the things that they're trying to do is figure out how to grab all these notes and get somebody who is competent enough, because there's very few people that do this. And one of the things that they were talking about is, the Bible talks about the signs on the skies and all these other things, and the way that they interpret it was completely different to, let's say, what astrology does today.
Right.
It's completely different. This is a 180, is a one end of the spectrum to the other. So all of these things are real, and I mean, you need a completely whole life to kind of go down and study these. But that's the beauty of Christianity, that we will have an eternity to dig deep into all of these things, and all of these things are going to be revealed.
Right.
So when it comes to non-human intelligence in both the biologics and in the spiritual realm, I think that in the spiritual realm will not change anything related to our worldview or religion, but the greens or the grays, the biologics in that perspective. Can you say what would that mean for Christianity as a whole?
It wouldn't falsify it, but it would raise a lot of questions.
Okay, it won't falsify.
Like, for example, I mean, if God exists, adding more physical, a lot of reasons that we believe God exists is because we think that the physical universe needs an ultimate cause that's not part of the universe. So adding more things in the universe would never do away with the need for a cause. You're just adding more things that need a cause.
Right.
It's like the multiverse theory. Well, adding more universes doesn't get us away from needing a cause. It just gives us more things that need a cause. So, but if we did find these kinds of beings, other kind of physical, biological entities, as it were, it would just raise a lot of questions. It wouldn't falsify the resurrection or anything like that at all. It would just raise questions about, well, what's their relationship to us and to God? Are they sentient? Are they rational? Do they have a soul? Are they sinful? Would Jesus need to die for them, or would he even want to save them? If in Christian theology, most of us don't believe that the demons even have a possibility of being saved. So just because you're a rational being in Christian theology doesn't mean that God wants to save you. In fact, if you believe, in predestination, a lot of people in Christian thinking believe that God's not even intending to save all of humans. So the question is, well, would they be sinful? Would Jesus want to save them? God want to save them? And then would it require another incarnation into their kind of nature? Those kind of questions, these kind of astrotheological questions, cosmotheological questions, that will be interesting. And they're being asked now already because of a lot of all this is going on. And it's not exactly new. These questions have been going on for a long time, just for, theological thinking, as it were. But it's getting more and more, I guess, in the spotlight because of things that are going on.
Well, and not only that, I think that the means of dissemination, the internet, you're talking about AI, all these other things make it much more accessible. So I think that all of that, forces the hand as well.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we can finish with on a positive note. So after discussing all of these, we're talking about Aliens.gov, talking about manipulation of a narrative. Is this something that they're doing out of their own kindness and goodness and kindness, or is their hand forced to do this?
Right.
We talk about all of these other things that are happening, like the general that went missing. And even what's missing from the general story, right, which is the spiritual side, the spiritual battle, the demonic side of things. Just tell the audience before we close, what's the one thing that they need to know about all of this and how we should be thinking moving forward?
Well, I guess the one thing is before we can make conclusions and before we can make our theories, we've got to know the facts. And so, as we hear on these detective shows. Just the facts, man. We just want to know what are the facts and what can we put together that gives us the most explanatory power, the most explanatory scope, and the thing that's the most plausible. And so, having an alien.gov type of URL is not necessarily tipping the hand at a disclosure. The general and the scientists going missing or the one instance being killed doesn't necessarily mean that it's related to UFOs, aliens, or even another national agency killing them, or a government agency, or our own. We have to be careful not to jump to conclusions about what's going on, but we should be informed as citizens of our country and as thinking people, and if you're Christians, as thinking Christians as well. So just watch the news, have a healthy dose of skepticism of what's going on. If you're interested in this whole paranormal thing, it's good to read good sources, and I listen on this channel all the time about what's good to read. So read the good things and try to stay away from the super out there, strange kind of things. And there's just apart from the dark aspects of these things, like people really have gone missing. Our government has killed people. That's just undeniable. There's a lot of darkness there. This is an interesting topic, and it's an interesting topic to bring people into the faith because people don't do this a lot. If people are open to the paranormal and the spiritual and the weird, you're only a hop, skip, and a jump from being open to the spiritual over here to being a Christian.
Yeah, that is the whole premise of the folks over at, and they're probably going to get a pretty big hit with this whole Bigfoot thing, because the folks at the Blurry Creatures, their whole podcast is based on Bigfoot being the kind of gateway drug to the supernatural, and that's how they bring people into a biblical framework of thinking. Well, this has been amazing, and I have a topic that I want to share, but I'm gonna we'll share that on the ending screen. Before that, I want let everybody know that we appreciate you sticking through this show. This is only our second episode. Lord willing, we will have many, many more. Also, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. That helps us a lot. That's probably the best help you can, and share this with your friends and family. You find this interesting. And I'm going to give it to you now so you can close us out, and then we'll go into the ending screen, and I'm going to be telling you something about what topic I think it'll be phenomenal.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate it. This is it can be fun discussions here. It can be weird. It can sometimes be dark, as in the case of say in some aspects of it. But thanks for being here. Priscilla, it's great having you here as well. Thanks for being here too, and being able to hang out with us. Looking forward to having you on the show and discuss your experiences. If you're here live, thanks. If you're watching this, thanks. Leave a comment. As Jorge said, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Stay mysterious.
Yes, and now the topic that I think which should be this cousin here is, are you ready? I don't have a drum roll ready, man, but I think we should be talking
I had one if I knew about it.
Okay, well, the one thing that I think it'll be phenomenal to discuss here, and maybe we can even pull out some clips. Actually, we need to start recruiting people to help us with clips and things like that so we can watch over. Actually, I spent all morning looking for a way where me and you can watch a clip in real time, and you will have access to, pause and play on your end, and I'll have access to pause and play here as Very well. Cool. And I think I have an idea. I have a workaround, but I want a legit way to do this. But what I'm saying is, the idea is to talk about lizard people. Like lizard people. I know that there are a ton of reports. There are videos of people's pupils looking in a very strange way. The way that they're eyelids, that they have outer eyelids, inner eyelids, just like lizards or like reptiles. reptilian people, lizard people. That these people are, in a sense, kind of like skinwalkers, that they just put on a human suit and things like that. And then again, we're not gonna shy away from weird stuff like this.
That's
because
what we're all about. Weird stuff. Have fun with it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And then again, if it's weird, if it's happening out there, it is a topic of discussion in many circles. And interestingly enough, have you noticed that Hollywood picks up these things and runs with them?
They sure
it's
do.
Almost like, don't look here, this is just fiction, right? So it is one of those things that we want to make sure that we do, and it is, let's leave no stone unturned, man. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it sounds fun. It's interesting. That's a topic I haven't looked into a whole lot, so look forward to that. It sounds really that's out there.
Yeah,
but it sounds fun.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, when you said that's out there. Yeah, from a perspective of someone who does meticulous research, it's something that you'll be like, wow, that's kind of a couple miles down the road. But that's one of the things that, if you look at the most viral, kind of mystery channels and TikToks and things like that, that's what it is, man. Yeah. And even for no other reason, and this is just borrowing from the idea of C.S. Lewis's, even for no other reason, this content exists so the other retarded content don't get a hold of people that are gullible and easy to manipulate.
That's true.
Right? I want to be able to be
help people.
Exactly, to serve, to minister to people. And with that being said, man, I think that it is time for us to call it quits. Thanks everybody for watching. We've been here live for an hour and 16 minutes and 57 seconds. This was a phenomenal live stream. Thank Jesus that we have no technical difficulties. Everything worked out the way it was supposed to be. I hope you guys love the content, the conversation, and the production. We truly pour our heart and soul into this, so we expect you to share this and let people know about the Mysterium Files. So this is Jorge Gill signing off. Brian, thank you for your expertise, and we'll see you in the next show.